You thought you knew the truth, but betrayal hides in the shadows. Welcome to Betrayal Stories. Subscribe and like so you never miss the
25 days before our wedding, I found out he was having an affair. We've been together 9 years. In the hallowed halls of my mind, a tempest brewed, unyielding and relentless. It had been 10 days since the colossal gust of dissolution swept through the once tranquil sanctuary of my heart. The weight of the revelation bore down upon me, a leaden shroud that I struggled to discard, but it clung tenaciously, suffocating my soul in its den of deceit. One balmy autumn night, as the cosmos painted the heavens with a tapestry of stars, I found myself ensnared in the chilling tendrils of doubt that had long been creeping towards the foundations of our union. I looked to the digital constellation of his footprints, eager to uncover a tale that was seldom told. Lo and behold, my heart kite-tailed as I discovered his pattern of visits to a place I, myself, had never laid eyes upon, a place he had sworn on the sanctity of our love that he had been elsewhere. The quiet, tranquil suburbs were shattered as I confronted him with my findings, a keening wail piercing the twilight serenity. His admission, a torrential downpour of betrayal that left me crippled and soul-stricken, sent shock waves of disbelief cascading through the once steadfast fortress guarding my heart. The truth was that he had all along been engaging in a clandestine dance with the beguiling siren from his softball team, a dance conductors of which even our closest friends were privy to. The symphony of my life threatened to disintegrate as I took to the phones, setting in motion the annulment of the elaborate and exquisite symphony of nuptial bliss that had once been our future. With a cast of over 150 students of the art of matrimony, many of whom had been hired to lend their voices to the harmonious anthem we had hoped to create, I began to relay the grim news of our disbanding. The banquet hall, once brimming with fresh anticipation and hope, had been transformed into a grand cathedral of despair, the unfulfilled potential of our once promised future now stoically standing as a towering monument to the failures of our relationship. Each day, as the sun drew its curtain of gold and crimson across the expanse of the sky, I would find myself cradled in his warm embrace, my heart clinging to the vestiges of hope that he might one day guilt me into belief that this was but a fleeting storm in the grand tapestry of our love. Yet he was not a man in search of repentance, but rather a wayward sailor clinging to the quiet whispers of seduction. One by one, the towers of his tender memories began to crumble, a crescendo of emotive cries echoing throughout the abyss that divisions now separated us. As the bitter taste of bitterness coursed through me, I demanded that he declaratively inform his entire world of the impending ruin we had fashioned. He dialed his mother's number, his grandmother's, the numbers of friends and family, each conversation a stinging dagger that left my heart to bleed and ache with every agonizing syllable. His clan, a vibrant tapestry of flames, would soon be made to bow their heads as they journeyed across lands distant, crossing the modem of dreams to reach the shores of our broken home. The echoing bells of celebration that had once danced in the plains of our minds now tolled like the knell of doom, ushering in the apocalypse of our love. As the days wore away, the grizzled path to forgiveness beckoned, his every word a hesitant scrabbling towards the mercy that dangled tantalizingly just beyond his grasp. He spoke of his love for me, of his deeply felt yearnings for our union, and yet his double-edged tongue whispered the siren song of a woman who lured him towards treacherous shores. I turned to him with a river Styx in my eyes and begged him to wander the roads of remorse, his pilgrimage to find the lost key to my heart. As the anguished susurrus of our love still danced in the wind, I cajoled him to share with the world the news of our ruin, the profundity of our despair. But his eyes, as coal-black as a frozen stream shrouded in forever night, stared at me unyielding and cold, a spectral mirror of the heart that now lay broken within me. And so I asked, a plaintive, whispered question that hung heavy in the air, like a moth's wing caught in a spider's web. With the patience of a man weighed down by the chains of remorse, he agreed to depart, to walk along the path of penance, to seek out the answers to the questions that haunted me. The sun, which had been a radiant companion for so long, now became the harbinger of a new dawn. And so, as the pages of our lives unfold, the story of our love ushered in a coda of longing, a final heartfelt verse that rang out in the sky like a hopeful whisper. The silence of our sobs danced in the cool breeze, our souls now on divergent paths as we walked the twisting roads of our new lives, seeking solace in the faces of strangers and the sanctuary of the rivers of time. The story of us, once a symphony of laughter and love, had now become a dirge for the union that had been laid to waste. The days turned into nights, each one eerily echoing the heartache that had become an unwelcome party guest. The car, a silent witness to the angst that spilled from their exchanges, now wallowed in the reverberations of the unspoken lingering between them. Each message he sent, she read with a desolation that seemed to expand with every character, as she struggled to make sense of the choices that had led to this crossroads. The wedding date loomed on the horizon, a daytime glimmer of light in the distance that seemed to evade her with every passing moment. His family, a source of comfort and love, was coming to town, adding yet another layer of complication to an already tangled web. In the throes of this turmoil, she found herself unexpectedly planning her next steps. A car was to be her new companion, offering a small sense of independence in the sea of uncertainty. A trip to see her parents, originally scheduled for the wedding weekend, was now a much-needed sanctuary, a respite from the storm that threatened to engulf her. But the AP, this enigmatic figure that had infiltrated her thoughts, was continued to haunt her. The emotions that surged within her were a whirlpool of hatred and obsession, a maelstrom that threatened to consume her. One night, driven by an impulse she couldn't explain, she found herself at her doorstep, her heart pounding in her chest as she prepared to confront her. Lucky for her, she was not home. She knew logically that the AP was not the one who had broken their bond. She was merely a catalyst, the trigger for a powder keg of emotions that had lain dormant for so long. But the thoughts of the AP refused to abate. She was a phantom limb, a constant reminder of what had been severed. The invoice for the wedding expenses she sent to the AP was a feeble attempt to assert control over a situation she no longer had any power in. She longed for a moment of peace, for her mind to quiet, for her heart to mend. She yearned for the days when she could focus on her business, the work that she loved, but the turmoil that raged within seemed to disregard her pleas for respite. 2 weeks of leave loomed on the horizon, a tantalizing promise of rest, but the mountain of work that lay before her threatened to bury her under its weight, and she could ill afford the time off. The days stretched out before her, a labyrinth of tasks and responsibilities, each one a testament to the life that she had built, a life that now seemed so fragile, so precariously balanced on the precipice of change. In the midst of her turmoil, she found solace in the virtual presence of strangers, their empathetic words echoing in the vast emptiness of her thoughts. Yet the familiar adages of hope and resilience fell on deaf ears, a broken heart unable to process the comfort they were intended to provide. The weight of her predicament was too great, a near unsurmountable burden that threatened to crush her spirit. Her days were a blur, the once vibrant colors of life muted, the laughter and joy replaced by a hollow silence. The wedding, a beacon of hope, now cast a dark shadow, looming over her like a specter of what was. October, with its promise of a new beginning, seemed an eternity away. But amidst the darkness, there was a spark of determination, a flicker of hope. She reached out, not for the offering of false promises, but for a sense of understanding, a connection with those who had tread the path she was on. She was alone, but not entirely isolated, for she was surrounded by a circle of love and support, a lifeline that she found herself clinging to in times of despair. With resolution in her heart, she decided to take the first step towards healing. She would untangle herself from the web of the past, severing ties that bound her to pain and bitterness. She would seek solace in the words of a therapist, her voice a balm to the wounded soul. The road ahead was long and arduous, but she was ready. The journey to mend her broken heart had just begun.
With renewed determination, she clutched her therapist's business card in her hand, her fingers gripping tightly as if it were a lifeline. The city that bustled around her seemed to fade into the background, her world shrinking down to the small office she was about to enter. "You've taken the first step towards healing," her therapist had said, her voice gently encouraging. "Remember, you can't change the past, but you can change how you react to it." That phrase echoed in her mind as she opened the door to the therapist's office, acknowledging that she was not alone in this journey. The tears that had been brimming in her eyes felt like they would finally give way, but she forced them back, refusing to let them cloud her judgment. She closed the door behind her, taking a deep breath as she sat down on the comfortable cushion of the therapist's chair. The weight of the world seemed to lift off her shoulders, and for the first time, in what felt like an eternity, she felt a glimmer of hope. This was it, the beginning of her new chapter, and she was ready to embrace it with open arms.
My cheater has an expensive sex worker habit. In the quiet, unassuming suburban neighborhood, where the lush green trees of the backyard rustled gently in the cool evening breeze, nestled house that held a secret. The shuttered blinds and dimly lit windows hid a life that was far from tranquil. A life I had been living for decades, thinking it was the picture of a loving, committed marriage. 4 months ago, the hard, cruel realities of life tore through my veil of denial when I found out that the man I shared my life with, the man I had stood beside for over 35 years, had been unfaithful. Again. The bitter irony of the situation was not lost on me. Here we were, thinking we had weathered the storm, and yet the deceitful waves crashed upon our shores once more. 8 years ago, we had faced a similar crisis, one that left me reeling, heartbroken, and utterly betrayed. The painful process that followed, the wasted money on counselors who could not mend our shattered trust, the forced attempts at reconciliation that left us both hurting more than before, the soul-searching and healing that I undertook, and ultimately my decision to stay, to hold on to the familiar devil rather than face the unknown one. But it turns out I had been laboring under a false sense of security. My husband, it seemed, had resumed his extramarital affairs just a mere 8 months after our first D-Bay. A wave of anger surged through me as I realized that while we had been working on our marriage, he had been out there engaging in secret trysts with sex workers. How dare he, I thought, as I recalled the countless times I had taken care of him, tending to his needs, managing our household, ensuring our children's future, caring for our pets, and even serving as his caregiver. 4 to 7 trips to the emergency room each year became our norm, leaving me physically and emotionally exhausted. And yet, here he was, taking advantage of my love and dedication, groping me while I was doing the dishes or mopping the floor. His bad back and sleep apnea issues meant he slept upright in a recliner, a practice that started many years ago. To accommodate him, I had even purchased a recliner for our bedroom, praying that it would bring us closer, make our lovemaking more comfortable. But he betrayed my trust yet again, trading my love for the fleeting moments with his sexual conquests. I felt like a stranger in my own home, a failure as a wife, a woman torn apart by the tears in our relationship. I yearned for tenderness, for love, for the simple touch of a hand that meant real affection, not a cold, calculating, deceptive act.